I remember it's a long time ago, I remember as a young man living in Florida, and I was in my early to mid-20s, and I had stopped, I was, where are my 70s and 80s kids at? There's a few of us, yeah. So how many of you watched wrestling in the 70s and 80s? Hulk Hogan, remember all that? Well, when I grew up a little bit, and spoiler alert, wrestling's not real. Yeah, just in case you didn't know. Those guys really don't beat each other near to death every week. They actually fight every day. But it's an amazing display of athleticism, regardless. And I remember as a kid, I remember believing that Hulk Hogan was invincible. You know, like no one could beat Hulk Hogan, right? He body slammed Andre the Giant when I was a kid. This giant, 7-foot tall, 500-pound dude, he slams him. No one can beat that, right? But then reality hits, and you realize that wrestling is not really as real as you thought it was when I was a kid. And that lost a little luster for me. But I remember in the mid-90s, probably more like the late 90s, when we were living in Florida, and I had this long commute to Tampa, and I'd listen to talk shows in the morning on the way there, and they had an interview with this new up-and-coming wrestler called The Rock. And I'm sure you all know him today. If you've seen any movie ever, he's in it. He's in just about every movie that's out there today. And he's very entertaining, very charming. And I heard him talking on the radio, and I was instantly grabbed by his charisma. The way he talked like a tough guy, he was new and he was coming up. But he had this catchphrase then, and he's had so many, since, but he would tell people to know their role. Yeah. Know what your role is. Know your role, and then he would say, "And shut your mouth," which is not the nice part. Don't want to focus on that part, because he was, it was a trash talker. But the know your role aspect really kind of hits home to me, because in every relationship that we have, there are roles to be played. Cecil is teaching the love languages to our teens, and there are different ways that we communicate love. And I don't know if it's really roles, but there are kind of roles that we play in that love language. If your love language is gifts, and you're trying to communicate, and people are giving gifts, understand that your role becomes, if your partner's love language is gift, that you need to become a gift giver. That's how they appreciate love. And if it's quality time, then you have to get out of your armchair and go somewhere and do something. My wife hates it when I have time off and I don't want to go anywhere or do anything. Because, I'm not really a social person. And I use all my words up talking to you guys, for a week. And she wants to go and explore and do something exciting. And I just want to shut all the way down. It's like I want to just close the world out and just, sit and recharge my batteries. But my role in that becomes that I have to get out of my couch and say, "Ooh, let's go to Port Huron for today." Just completely spontaneous. Let's drive down there, and then she's happy. It doesn't matter where we go, as long as I'm willing to go. And we had a couple of problems, and as I'm learning these love languages and trying to identify what my role is in this aspect, I failed last year during my vacation because we had an event planned to go somewhere. And we didn't end up wanting to go. And she chose the event that she thought that I and the kids would want to go, but we didn't want to do it. And then we didn't end up going anywhere, and it ruined the entire vacation in just one day. Because I didn't understand what my role in that was. But not only do we have roles in our personal relationships, but we have a role with God. And that role becomes really important. And if you start to question, what is my role with God? What does God want me to be? I want you to kind of focus about that and think about that. What is your role with God? What does He want you to be? We have lots of identifiers as to what our role with God is. Jesus says that you are now my brothers and my sisters, and you are heirs, co-heirs with Christ. That we are going to inherit the kingdom that He sacrificed everything to get. That's a really important role. How many of you go out there and you think about yourself as Jesus' brother or sister? Is that part of the focus that you think like you're out there and you're representing, I'm Jesus' brother and I'm a good brother, I'm Jesus' sister and I'm a good sister? That's part of the role. You are inheriting the kingdom of God. Amen. You are inheriting, this is a place where the streets are made with gold. You ever heard the joke about the rich man who, on his deathbed, he's giving his heart to the Lord, but he can't quite give up his money. And so he's trying to make this deal with these angels out of his effort. He says, can I just please bring something, that all this hard work that I accumulated, all this, can I please bring something to heaven? And the angel said, okay, we spoke with God. He said, you can bring just one thing, one briefcase full of whatever you want. So he gathers all of his gold, and he's getting ready, and he goes through the gates, and he meets St. Peter, and he's really excited, and the angels are like, okay, what did you bring? And he opens up and he's got all of his gold. And they look at him and say, you brought pavement? You brought pavement? Well, that was what pressed you? Our ideas about what's important to us here is not nearly about what's important to us in the next life. And a lot of the things that we put priorities on, where we're going to go for lunch after church today, where we're going to do when we go on vacation, how are we going to spend our free time, these are all things that become important to us. And I know some of you work really hard and you deserve the things that you have, but our role in our relationship with God is important. And I want to read a couple passages of Scripture to kind of help you reflect on this. I want to read 1 Peter chapter 2, starting in verse 11. 1 Peter 2:11. It says, living godly lives in a pagan society. If this doesn't speak to our hearts, if this doesn't speak to the inner cities in Chicago or surrounding areas in Flint, I don't know what does, but living godly lives in a pagan society. Dear friends, I urge you as foreigners and exiles to abstain from sinful desires which wage war against your soul. Peter's telling us that we are not supposed to be natives of this planet. We're supposed to be strangers, aliens, foreigners. We are just passing through on our way home. Do you think about life that way? Or have you made a comfortable home? And this is your primary residence. Here's a whole different thought process. We're not supposed to be settling here. We're go west, young man. Go west. We're passing through. And there's dangerous areas that we're going through, and there's going to be difficult times. But this is not our destination. But we nest like it is. Because as they were moving west, people would just stop like, oh, there's good farmland here. Let's just build a home here. And we do that here in our earthly body. We just build a home. And we want everything the way that we want it. We want to go to our favorite coffee shop, our favorite restaurant. We have our seat here at the church. And if the new people come and sit in our seats, we don't know what to do. We have who parked in my parking spot? We're just passing through. Oh, I would be ecstatic if someone came and parked in my parking spot. Oh, good, we have someone new. That's the attitude that we need to develop. We're just passing through. Live such good lives among the pagans that though they accuse you of doing wrong, they may see your good deeds and glorify God on the day He visits us. Let your light shine in such a way that even though people despise your godly living, that they see the truth. That's a challenge, folks. That is the challenge right there. Live your life in such a way that the pagan society sees you for who you really are, even though they hate you. Submit yourselves for the Lord's sake to every human authority, whether to the emperor as a supreme authority or to the governors who are sent by him to punish those who do wrong and commend those who do right. For it is God's will that by doing good you should silence the ignorant talk of foolish people. Folks, if there was one passage of Scripture that can describe what's going on in today's climate, politically, socially, it's this. If we lived our lives in such a way, and we were humble enough in such a way that we just exuded Christ in everything that we do, we could stop all this ignorant talk that's going on. Amen. Where is the good talk coming from? Where is the good talk coming from? Live as free people, but do not use your freedom as a cover-up for evil. Live as God's slaves. Now I want to know, I don't want you to raise your hand. Do you live your life as God's slave? Slaves don't get a lot of choices. They don't choose where they work. They don't choose what they eat. They don't choose their vacation time. They don't have freedom. They don't have retirement. He's saying, even though you have freedom, don't live like you have freedom. Live your life as if you were God's slave. That's a humbling experience. Slaves don't talk back to their master. Slaves don't question their master. Slaves do what their master, they change their desires for that of what their master is. If you want to change the world, you want to change your community, you want to change inner city Chicago, serve them like you're not important. You want to change the people at Feeding the 5,000? Serve them like you are not important. I hate the mentality that sometimes that we're on this side of that Feeding the 5,000 table and they're on that side. If that's how we're going to separate, then we should be the servants. No pride, not better than. God sent me here to serve you. You want to make a difference in your community? Serve it. You want to make a difference in your home? Serve them. Be careful serving your teens. You don't want their heads to get too big. They need a little discipline. But you can still serve them in love and not spoil them. You want to make a difference in your community? Serve them. We're not trying to get anything out of what we do. If we have this idea that, okay, we're going to go out there and we're going to serve Christ in our surrounding neighborhoods, and we're talking in the board about being a community church, because we're not really a community church here. But if we go out in these neighborhoods, our goal should be to serve them without expecting anything in return. What if none of them ever come to the church? Would we stop serving them because we didn't get anything back out of it? Our attitude should be that of a servant. Jesus did not go out and set people free from sin, hoping that they would follow him and give money to his cause. He set people free so that they would have a chance to break the bonds of sin and learn about the eternity and go to heaven and spend eternity with the Father. That should be our goal as a church, to serve people like slaves. Show proper respect to everyone, good, bad, or indifferent. Love the family of believers. Fear God and honor the emperor. This is a Roman emperor. This is a dictator, someone who doesn't care about Hebrew people. You might not like your president. You might not like senators. You might not like your representatives. I don't know what side of the political climate all of you are on. It doesn't matter. Jesus, through Peter, is saying, respect this foreign dictator who's here. Slaves, in reverent fear of God, submit yourselves to your masters, not only to those who are good and considerate, but also to those who are harsh. For it is commendable if someone bears up under the pain of unjust suffering, because they are conscious of God. God saying, even if you are being abused or mistreated, to serve. To serve. That is commendable. That God is our one defense and our righteousness. We don't have to stand up for right. We don't have to stand up for truth. It is God's job to do that. And yet, for some reason in society, we feel like it's our obligation to tell people that they're sinners, that they're going to hell. It's our job to tell the truth in love. It's our job to serve. It's our job to point out what the truth is. It's not our job to judge. But how is it, to your credit, if you receive a beating for doing wrong and endure it? But if you suffer for doing good and you endure it, this is commendable before God. To this you were called, because Christ suffered for you, leaving you an example that you should follow in his steps. So a lot of people ask me, okay, the Sermon on the Mount, someone slaps you on the face. Jesus doesn't really mean for you to turn the other side of your cheek to him, does he? Yes, he does. Yes, he does. There is a strength in saying that you can try to hurt my body, but you cannot break my spirit. That God in me is stronger than the hand that you smack me with. It's natural for us to want to hit back. It's natural for us to want to push back. But that's not the way Christ wants us to do it. He wants us to submit, to be humble, to be a servant, so that people can see what the truth is. He committed no sin, and no deceit was found in his mouth. When they hurled their insults at him, he did not retaliate. When he suffered, he made no threats. Instead, he entrusted himself to him who judges justly, God the Father. He himself bore our sins in his body on the cross, so that we might die to sin and live for righteousness. By his wounds you have been healed. For you were like sheep going astray, but now you have returned to the shepherd and overseer of your souls. I want to move right along. Ezekiel 36, starting in verse 24. For I will take you out of the nations. I will gather you from all the countries and bring you back into your own land. This is fulfilled after the Babylonian exile. It's also fulfilled in 1948 when England and the Commonwealth nations reestablished Israel as a country. That's twice that they were completely removed from their country, and twice they're completely restored to their country. You will not find that in secular history in any other country throughout existence, that people were completely removed from their land twice and they came back and reinhabited. I will gather you from all countries and I'll bring you back to your own land. I will sprinkle clean water on you, and you will be clean. I will cleanse you from all impurities and from all your idols. God is who makes us righteous. God makes you clean. You can't just follow all the rules and say, I'm okay. Remember the rich ruler? I followed all the commandments, Lord. I've kept all of them. And what do? Okay, if you're that far, give all of your wealth away and come follow me. I will give you a new heart, and I will put a new spirit in you. I will remove from you your heart of stone and give you a heart of flesh. And I will put my spirit in you and move you to follow my decrees and be careful to keep my laws. Then you will live in the land I gave your ancestors. You will be my people, and I will be your God. I will save you from all your uncleanness. I will call for the grain and make it plentiful, and will not bring famine upon you. 1 Corinthians 6, verse 19. Do you not know that your bodies are temples of the Holy Spirit who is in you, whom you have received from God? You are not your own. You were bought at a price. Therefore, honor God with your bodies. We make decisions for ourselves all the time. And here in 1 Corinthians, Paul teaches us that you are not your own. You have been bought with a price. Everybody is a slave. Every one of you. You're either a slave to your desires, you're a slave to your happiness, you're a slave to your money, you're a slave to sin, you're a slave to your addiction, or you're a slave to Christ. And you need to choose this day who you're going to serve. As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. We all serve somebody. Everyone out there serves someone, and they don't realize it. People who are lost in sin think that they're just doing the best they can with what they have. And they have no idea that there's, as we're studying the screw tape letters, that there are these dark forces that exist outside that are influencing their decisions, that are just making themselves just immerse themselves in bad choices. Addicted to drugs, addicted to pornography, addicted to social media, and this desire of being famous and happy, and to have their own opinions. And everyone has to share your opinions, because we're not confident enough in what we believe, that if someone believes different than us, that we can't hold a conversation with anyone anymore. We need safe places to go and hide, because someone believes something different than we do. We cannot be afraid. We have the truth in us. We have the light of Christ in us. We are slaves to his calling. When people attack what we believe, they don't attack us. They attack God. How foolish. How foolish to attack God. You are just an intermediary between God and humanity. And if someone attacks what God says is right and true, they are not hurting you. They can't hurt you. And God is this righteous, fair, holy judge. And he has your best interest at heart. He's trying to reach other people from the kingdom. Now, one last passage of scripture, and we're going to wrap this up. Matthew 20. Matthew chapter 20. I kind of talked about this a little bit at the Good Friday service at Flint First. Matthew 20, a mother's request. Then the mothers of Zebedee's sons came to Jesus with her sons, and kneeling down, asked a favor of him. What is it you want? He asked. She said, grant that one of these two sons of mine may sit at your right and the other at the left in your kingdom. You don't know what you are asking, Jesus said to them. Can you drink the cup that I am going to drink? Are you willing to put it all on the line for eternal life? We can, they answered. Jesus said to them, you will indeed drink from my cup. But to sit at my right or my left is not for me to grant. These places belong to those for whom they have been prepared by my Father. When the 10 heard about this, they were indignant with the 2 brothers. They started bickering and fighting about it. Who's the greatest? We can have this conversation in the youth group right now. I go in there and I can pick one of them. I'll just pick one of them at random. No, I won't do that because that might be awkward. You go in there and tell one of those boys they're the best basketball player and watch a fight break out. Because they get really competitive with their basketball out there if you haven't noticed out there. Go out there and tell one of them they're the best. And there will be an argument and you'll be like, whoa, what did I start? They're competitive. And the same thing is true with these guys. Zebedee's wife is there saying that my 2 boys are the best 2 boys. And remember, John, he goes around telling everyone that he's the disciple that Jesus loved, right? He had a lot of pride, a lot of humility at the same time. And then his brother James, he's the first of the apostles that gets martyred. He's the first one to die, one of the original 12. Well, besides Judas, of course, which he wasn't martyred. But they really do have this difficulty to endure. It says, when the 10 heard about this, they were indignant with the 2 brothers. Jesus called them together and said, you know that the rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and that their high officials exercise authority over them. Not so with you. Instead, whoever wants to become great among you must be your servant, and whoever wants to be first must be your slave. Just as the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many. If you really want to be God's favorite child, if you want to be Jesus' best brother or sister, then don't expect someone to do something spectacular for you. Do something spectacular for somebody else. This will work in your marriage. This will work in your family. This will work in your church. It'll work at your job. It'll work at your school. It'll work in your neighborhood. Because everyone loves it when someone comes and helps. When someone does something else for someone without expecting anything in return. My wife she's such a strong, independent woman. And I know that a lot of you have known Angie for a long time. But you know what? At home, she does all the laundry. She cooks all the meals. She works full-time and does that at home. And she doesn't ask for anything in return. If the boys said they didn't like the way they did her clothes, she would do her clothes exactly the way that they asked her to. And that servant's heart, those boys, every time she makes a meal, they both thank her afterwards. Because they recognize that she's willing to sacrifice something for them. That she worked all day too, and she still came home and cooked a meal for us. In today's sports climate, we have some amazingly talented young people playing. Watch the football draft, I watch the NBA playoffs. These guys are talented. LeBron James is a linebacker from football playing basketball. He's fast, he's strong, he's a freak of nature. And every time they try to compare him to Michael Jordan, I see a huge difference. Here's this guy with talent, and here's this guy with heart. And he worked and worked and worked. He didn't sit games out because he was tired. He didn't get rests or breaks. He played with the flu and scored 55 points and had to get 2 IVs of fluid at halftime because he was so dehydrated. And I think that we've become Christians like LeBron James. We have all this amazing, we have technology, we have intelligence, and our heart sometimes, we expect things to happen. But we need to be like those old school gritty guys that want to get in there and do the work, get to the gym early, work really hard, put forth the effort, put something into it so that God can reap a harvest from it. Not because we're special, and not because we have special tools, but because we're willing to get in there and do the work. If we're not slaves to the thing that we love, then we're useless tools. If you're not giving your all, if you're not giving 110%, if you're not immersing yourself in what God's called you to do, we're doing it wrong, including myself. All in for Christ today, folks. All in for Christ. Let's bow our heads for a word of prayer.